Bud, what's the first time you ever met Bob Uecker? When was that story?
Well, that's an interesting story. I guess I met Bob in about 1959 or 60.
Mm-hmm.
And we became friends. And of course, he's a Milwaukee guy. And later on, we got to Brewers. And so Bob did some speaking for us. He came up here from Atlanta. He wanted to come home. And we went to the New York Baseball Writers' Dinner. You remember those dinners, Rich?
Yes, I do.
And in January of 1971, he and I went out together after the dinner. And we were talking, and I said, it was very simple. It was just, Bob, you ought to come to work for the Brewers. I'll find something for you to do. He said, I'm in. That was it. And the first year, we already had a full broadcast team, and our sponsor was a very good friend of mine, Schlitzbury. They had a full crew, so we had to work around that. And so I had to find something for him to do, and I finally made him a scout. And I sent him up to the Northern League, which was minor league at that time. And it's a famous story around here. He went up scouting. And Rich, I had Frank Lane. You remember old Frank Lane, bombastic general manager, had been all around. And he comes, Roy, he was helping. He was a fill-in, and he really did good work for us, but that's neither here nor there. He said, what do you want me to do with your guy, Uecker? And I said, well, Frank, he's a baseball guy, was a catcher. He should have a lot of... Well, look at this report. And he throws it on my desk. And on the report, he threw it on and laughed. There was a bunch of mashed potatoes, gravy all over the thing. And so I later asked him, Bob, what the hell are you doing? And he says, well, you know, Al, he called me Al, the only person in the world that ever called me Al. He said, what the hell, I was doing the work, and every player that he scouted, he rated as a prospect.
That's a
so he hedged his bet. And the next year, to get him on the radio, he said to head of Schlitz, I'll pay half if you'll pay half. He was making $12,000. So I paid $6,000 and they paid $6,000. And he began a broadcast. Merle Harmon was with him, and the local fellow, Tom Collins. And they walked out on him. The first game in Yankee Stadium, they walked in and let him do it. And he was so nervous. And, you know, he's known for so many things, and I know him so well. But he made himself into a great announcer.
He sure did.
He made himself, people sometimes don't, I used to listen to ninth innings after we won, of course.
Yes.
And Bob it was just tremendous. And so from those beginnings, we never had a contract. And he never had a contract with Mark Antonazio, who bought the team from us in 2005. Each year he'd come in and say, well, what do you think? And we'd talk for a minute, and he'd say, okay. And I'd say, okay, and that was it.
It's just, again, I just remember growing up, Bud, watching him on Carson, telling stories on Johnny Carson, and then obviously the fact that, this documentary, you're featured in it prominently, so is Uecker and Yount and Molitor and Simmons and Raleigh Fingers, as you just mentioned. It is called Just a Bit Outside, even though, that was for the Cleveland franchise in the movie Major League. I love hearing that story. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.